Well, just tonight is the second part. It's Alien Night. We're going to try to get to the bottom of all this hubbub, find out what's going on. One of the most famous inventors and thinkers in history, as well as one of the most misunderstood, must certainly be the Serbian-American inventor, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and futurist Nikola Tesla. His contributions to science and technology are immeasurable. Throughout his life, developing a range of electrical and mechanical devices are just mind-boggling how he could think these things through. I heard he could see the invention in his mind's eye and do things like test bearings for wear over time in his mind. His contributions to science and technology are immeasurable. Throughout his life, developing a range of electrical and mechanical devices, his alternating current, AC, induction motor, related polyphase AC patents, early X-ray imaging devices, and numerous other inventions considered to be nothing short of miracles in his time. He was well ahead of his time, and also predicted many of the technological innovations we take for granted today, such as smartphones and wireless communication. By the time he died in 1943, Tesla was the holder of over 1,000 patents of all kinds, including neon lights. And you know how he invented the neon light? I think I got it from Eric Dollard. Edison was being not a nice guy to Tesla, and he wouldn't let him use his patented light bulb to light the World's Fair. So he invented his own light bulb, neon lights, those kind of lights that come in the tube. Pretty amazing. Remote automation systems. He used plasma, not a little piece of bamboo. Artificial lighting, particle beam energy, and many, many more, of course. Considering his mystery and mystique, many stories and conspiracies have gravitated towards Nikola Tesla, including alleged participation in the Philadelphia experiment using teleportation, the invention of the perpetual motion machine. I think that's where he wanted the solar system to power the machine, something like that. The creation of a deadly beam weapon called the Death Ray, and others. And among these, some of the weirdest have to do with alleged alien intelligences. The rumors of Tesla and his connection to aliens have gone deep, with all sorts of conspiracies stating that he was contacted by aliens who helped him along, and even that he was an alien himself. But the most intriguing are the ones that Tesla claimed himself. In an article for Collier's Weekly in 1901, Tesla would make the claim that he had listened in on actual alien communications at his lab in Colorado Springs in 1899. This was an era which both he and Italian inventor Guglielmo Marconi were pioneering the push into radio technology with their groundbreaking discoveries. And one night, Tesla would be testing out a unique radio antenna designed to monitor thunderstorms. He claimed that he had eavesdropped into communications by otherworldly alien intelligences. He would say in the article, "Did you notice Marconi had 9 heart attacks?" And from the book, The Visible Rainbow, basically the author is saying his exposure to EMF waves were the culprit. But Tesla was still pretty healthy and alive in his 80s when he got hit by a car. That was how he was killed, how he died. I remember him saying that he took a charge every day, and he took a shot of whiskey a day, and said he was going to try to live to 150. He came a little short, but he didn't expect to be killed. I wouldn't imagine he made it that long, but I think he could have made it to 100. Even now, at times, I can vividly recall the incident and see my apparatus as though it were actually before me. My first observations positively terrified me, as there was present in them something mysterious, not to say supernatural, and I was alone in my laboratory at night. But at that time, the idea of these disturbances being intelligently controlled signals did not yet present itself to me. It was some time afterward when the thought flashed upon my mind that the disturbances I had observed might be due to an intelligent control. Although I could not decipher their meaning, it was impossible for me to think of them as having been entirely accidental. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. Tesla would speculate that the aliens were perhaps from Mars, which at the time was the main culprit for anything alien-related, and he became obsessed with further refining his technology so that he might further communicate with these entities. Marconi himself agreed that this was perfectly legitimate pursuit, and pursued his own radio communications with aliens, which he would claim were met with success, stating, "I have encountered during my experiments with wireless telegraphy a most amazing phenomenon. Most striking of all is receipt by me personally of signals which I believe originated in the space beyond our planet. I believe it is entirely possible that these signals may have been sent by the inhabitants of other planets to the inhabitants of Earth. If there are any human beings on Mars, I would not be surprised if they should find a means of communication with this planet. A linking of the science of astronomy with that of electricity may bring about almost anything." Amazing. Right you are. This all stirred up quite a bit of excitement at the time, appearing in the media in numerous articles and catching the attention of the great inventor and one-time partner of Tesla, turned rival Thomas Edison. Edison was fascinated by the idea of pursuing radio technology for the purposes of communicating with aliens on Mars, and would himself say, "Although I am not an expert in wireless telegraphy, I can plainly see that the mysterious wireless interruptions experienced by Mr. Marconi's operators may be good grounds for the theory that inhabitants of other planets are trying to signal us. Mr. Marconi is quite right in stating that this is entirely within the realm of possible. If we are to accept the theory of Mr. Marconi that these signals are being sent out by inhabitants of other planets, we must at once accept with it the theory of their advanced development. Either they are our intellectual equal or our superiors. It would be stupid for us to assume that we have the corner on all the intelligence in the universe." Through all of this, Tesla supposedly actually invented new antenna towers and equipment specifically for the purpose of continuing his eavesdropping sessions on the aliens, and he seemed to be pushing for this technology to be used for what he saw as a sort of new frontier for the human race. We showed so much promise at the beginning of this century, didn't we? Shame. He would express enthusiasm and optimism in his endeavor, once writing, "One day my ear caught what seemed to be regular signals. I knew they could not have been produced upon Earth. Marconi's idea of communicating with the other planets is the greatest and most fascinating problem confronting the human imagination today. To ensure success, a body of competent scientists should be organized to study all the possible plans and put into excitation the best. The matter should be directed probably by astronomers with sufficient backing from men with money and imagination. Supposing that there are intelligent human beings on Mars, success is easily within the range of possibility." Well, that was, they ended up giving it to Hollywood. I mean, everything's gone wrong, right? Even the wrong people became president, and everything's backwards now. But that's another story. Most certainly, some planets are not inhabited by others but others are. And among these, there must exist life under all conditions and phases of development. Personally, I base my faith on the feeble planetary electrical disturbances, which I discovered in the summer of 1899, and which, according to my investigations, could not have originated from the Sun, the Moon, or Venus. Further study, science has satisfied me that they must have emanated from Mars. All doubt in this regard will soon be dispelled. I have observed electrical actions which have appeared inexplicable, faint and uncertain though they were. They have given me a deep conviction and foreknowledge that ere long all human beings on this globe, as one, will turn their eyes to the firmament above with feelings of love and reverence, thrilled by the glad news. Interestingly, although Tesla found so much promise in this, he would suddenly give up his experiments delving into such matters, spawning conspiracy theories, that he was silenced by those who did not want this knowledge to be known. It dovetails nicely into the fact that much of his writings and diaries were confiscated by the FBI after his death, and it all adds further layer to the mysterious life of an already enigmatic figure. Tesla had become almost legendary, with countless tales of weirdness surrounding him, and now he can add to the time he supposedly contacted aliens in the mix. It is perfectly feasible he merely picked up anomalous signals from space that had more mundane explanations beyond their ability to explain at the time. But in the end, we are left to wonder what he really found, and what might have happened had he been allowed to continue his research. It is all very fascinating indeed, and adds to the many tales of this mysterious figure from history. Indeed, Brent Swancer. Excellent article, Brent. I'll leave a link in the description.
I'll start when you throw it down. Yeah. Major Keyhole, as author of the book Flying Saucers Are Real, what is your opinion of these new sightings of unidentified objects?
With all due respect to the Air Force, I believe that some of them will prove to be of interplanetary origin. During a 3-year investigation, I found that many pilots have described objects of substance and high speed. One case, pilots reported their plane was buffeted by an object which passed them at 500 miles an hour. Obviously, this was a solid object, and I believe it was from outer space.
We have this gentleman who was in the Air Force as a younger guy, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with his story. They were photographing weapons, a dummy weapon that was launched, and in comes this UFO out of nowhere, catches up to it going 8,000 miles an hour, goes around it like it's sitting still, and then takes off. And it was, he didn't say anything about it for 30 years. I don't really think he's the kind of guy to make things up. He's a professor. That is to say, I know professors can make things up, but I don't think he's making this up. Something happened. I couldn't resist this one. This guy's last name is Tompkins, and he tells one of the weirdest stories I think I've ever heard. He's also the guy who tells the story of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin running into giant ships on the moon. Has this guy just been maybe hitting the gas a little bit too much? Or is he for real?
Extraterrestrials over Los Angeles. Most people were told it was Japanese, but it wasn't. Tell us what you know, Bill, what you saw.
No, actually, we were living in Long Beach at that time, and around 7 o'clock, my brother and I were reading the newspaper on the floor. My dad called us and told us to come out onto the deck. We were on the second floor of a very large house that was broken up into 4 apartments. And so they had a big deck way up. And we were 4 blocks from the ocean. So we couldn't see the water, but we could see the area above it, and here was this bright light. And all 3 of us were looking at it. We called some of the neighbors, and they came out on their deck. We all looked at it. And while we were watching it for several minutes, a tiny beam came out of it and at about a 45-degree angle to the left and went down towards the ocean. That beam then flipped up directly towards our apartment. Hit the back of the apartment, hit the trees, lit up everything around us, and went out.
Somebody knew you were watching. That's wild. That didn't just happen.
It was weird.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
So,
Was this Bill? Excuse me. Was this before or after the anti-aircraft had unloaded? Was it 4,000 rounds or something at this object, or is this the second object? What do you think?
No, this was before, because later in the evening the anti-aircraft started firing.
Okay.
And incidentally, what has not been published is the number of U.S. Navy anti-aircraft guns. We had the whole fleet at that time, and they used up all of their 20 millimeter, 40 millimeter, and 5-inch guns.
Firing out of where were they anchored? L.A. Harbor? Long Beach?
They were in Long Beach Harbor.
And they were shooting at this? Wow. Nobody talks about that.
The Coast Artillery was firing at them. And, of course, searchlights, we had 8 searchlights on this one big one that came in and it parked. And it was there for over an hour.
Right, yeah.
Different ones came above it, came beside it, came underneath it. The searchlights would pull off of the big one and follow the smaller ones and try to shoot them down. And it continued, but finally it got boring, so we went back to bed around 3.
I have never heard this before. That's fascinating. Go ahead.
Our neighbors stayed the whole night, and they said that it really didn't stop till around almost 5 o'clock. But the next day, there was articles in the paper that they thought there had been some military aircraft coming in. It was just a cover-up.
Sure, of course.
But my dad was like your friend. He was the guy that was responsible for that area. And, of course, he talked to everybody. And the interesting thing to me was that nobody got excited. Nobody got upset. There weren't any heart attacks. And while this was going on, over in London, Germany was bombing London. And those people were trying to get underneath the ground so they didn't get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And we have vehicles above us at less than 8,000 feet, most of them.
Right.
They were real high. And nobody was fast. All of them were slow. And many of them just parked.
Many of them what? Say that again, Bill. Many of them were...
Many of them just parked. They stopped. And they parked there.
Wow.
And this is right in Long Beach.
This is astonishing because we've only heard, Bob, you know this, the standard story on the Battle of L.A. was that there was one craft slowly meandering its way from the Culver City, Santa Monica Mountains area, all the way down to Long Beach before it, quote, disappeared. That's all we heard.
There were two public releases. One of them was unclassified one, said we fired 1,432 rounds of ammunition. And then, of course, there was a top secret release that said that we recovered one craft that had been shot down and had crashed in San Bernardino Mountains, and the other craft was salvaged by the Navy at sea.
Okay, hold on. I've heard rumor that one went down by Long Beach offshore and went into the water, crashed.
Correct.
I've heard another rumor that something went down in, I think it was El Monte, and a truck, a big lowboy, a flatbed truck came in, and that may have been an American fighter that was up there and got hit by our own friendly fire. I don't know. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know that case.
Okay.
I'm quoting from a top secret Majestic document.
Oh, my. Okay. So, two of these, you'd think that they'd know better than to park while they're getting shot at, but two were shot down, or one was damaged and it crashed in the ocean. The other went down the San Bernardino Mountains. The big one, we'll call that the mothership just for fun, moved off and apparently was undamaged. You can see the pictures of the Battle of Los Angeles, and you can see the exploding AA all around this thing and on it, and it wasn't damaging the big one. The
Right.
smaller craft perhaps were scout craft, and they weren't so heavily able to withstand the bombardment. Now, what Bill just said is that the ships in Long Beach emptied their magazines. They had no more ammo to fire, so that would jack up the 1,700 round number to thousands.
Well, it would, and this was an Army report, so they probably didn't count the Navy rounds.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, fascinating. Okay, Bill.
It was interesting that there were several ships in the Navy dry docks in San Pedro.
Yes.
And they didn't even have most of their crews there, but the crews that were there grabbed their guns, they got their ammunition, and they're firing from ships that are in dry dock.
They're not even in the water. That's amazing.
They weren't even in the water.
That's if you recall, Bill, where were we last time when we let off in the narrative, and where would you like to pick it up?
Well, we sort of left off.
There are very many famous pictures of UFOs on the moon. There is a plethora of them, and many of them are very intriguing indeed. Let's have a look at a few of my favorite.
type guy, and he had a degree in plasma physics. And he was also a consultant to NASA, and he was a consultant to people out at the Palos Verdes nuclear power generating station just 50 miles west of Phoenix. The other thing he said was there was a base on the moon. I find that quite astounding. I mean, I have heard astounding things, not only from this colonel, okay, but also probably the highest rank was a retired 3-star general, lieutenant general in the Air Force. And he knew another guy that I was in contact with, and this other guy claims that he worked 7 years on the U.S. anti-gravity program. And if a fraction of what he told me, and I've got a tape recorded, is true. Whoa. What a sham the space program is. Because there's another space program going on. A secret space program. And that's what I was attempting to find. In fact, you don't have to go too far to find that there is some secret space programs going on, because they had their own shuttles and their own astronaut crews right out here at Vandenberg Air Force Base, unbeknownst to everybody, and they scuttled a $5 billion facility that was housed there at one time. That was back in the 80s. But the kind of space program he was talking about is using a spacecraft that can leave the bounds of our atmosphere and travel to the planet Mars at 0.8 C, 0.8 the speed of light. And I said, how do you know that? I've been there, he said.
All right, now we might ask the question, well, what the hell is NASA all about if this stuff is going on? What are NASA doing? Well, I'm going to show you a clip of Barack Obama speaking at the Kennedy Space Center.
Of course, we all know that it would be impossible to be able to render an answer 100% for sure whether there is an alien presence on Earth or not. I'm not prepared to believe it at this time. However, the evidence is gathering, and if there were, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Take care. Good night.